Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I'm the Chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Griff, great to be back. We've had a few weeks hiatus with different things, been a bit busy, but we're back for another podcast. Before we jump into the podcast, you were lucky enough to be able to get yourself to Perth. Tell us about it. What was it like?
It was great. Great game, great ground, great atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a great result.
That's a great result.
Yeah, but it was, the ground was nearly full. I think they posted 57,000 something as the crowd, and I think it holds about 60.
Yep.
And it was a fabulous atmosphere. Great majority of the support, I reckon about 75% were blue. Massive support for the Blues.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of maroon support there, but they're outnumbered, which is unusual. Most grounds, apart from Sydney, where they play Origin, it's generally more of a maroon crowd, but definitely blue crowd. Good quality game, a lot of tries, a lot of penalties in the first half. Unfortunately, they all went one way, and Queensland, to their credit, they put the points on in the first half. New South Wales made mistakes. They were ill-disciplined.
I agree, yep.
But not to the extent of an 8-0 penalty count, which would have been 9-0 apart from the captain's challenge, where Ashley Klein got outvoted by the man in the box. So otherwise there would have been another penalty there. But New South Wales come back in the second half when they got a good share of possession. They actually scored an extra try, 5 tries to 4, and it was goal kicking. Queensland converted all their tries and kicked a penalty goal. Holmes, I think, 5 from 5, up against Lomax, 2 from 5. And to be fair to Lomax, they were all out wide.
Yeah, we didn't own. I felt in that game. Yeah, I felt in that game. I was. Some people were talking about Lomax, and I just felt we made too many errors to own the middle. And when you own the middle, you score under the sticks. We had to look out wide because we just weren't owning the middle enough, which was quite the opposite to game one, where the middle was ours. And I think that resulted in having to score out wide, and sort of make that goal kicking a little different. Thoughts on the teams, Griff, moving into game 3 next week? Any thoughts on the team?
Well, the Blues have gone in with the exact same 17.
Yep. Don't mind it. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I just thought maybe Kilo-Matungi could have come in for Stefano, but apparently Daly was looking at Kilo-Matungi last weekend and he didn't have his best game. But I just thought perhaps the variety that he offers, and I don't think Stefano actually set the world alight in game 2. But I don't think apart from that there should have been any changes. It seems everyone came through uninjured. There's still question mark on Brian Toto. Who would be a loss because he was the best blue in game 2.
He played some good footy.
They got Kiraz there, strangely, as the 18th man. I don't know why, because he basically only plays winger. But anyway, that is what it is. Queensland, that's where the shock was, or shocks. One, they dropped Mo Fotuaika, brought in they've called back, they've resurrected Josh Papali'i from the Raiders, who's been in good form. Whether he's up to Origin, we'll find out. I think, he's got a good 15 or 20 in him. Might do some damage. But, the pick and stick that they used to bang on about, that's out the window.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought, geez, under another establishment, they would have gone, what?
And Ponga forced out due to injury.
Yep.
And I would have thought Reece Walsh would have come in there.
Yep.
But they've gone for, again, Billy. If they lose this, Billy's going to cop it because he's brought in Guillemette Shibasaki. He was having a decent year for the Broncos, but I'm glad he brought him in because I'm not unhappy. Much rather Reece Walsh not be there.
Look, as someone as a Blues fan, I'm not displeased with that. Look. I think in Origin, I remember once, I'm trying to think who said it now. I want to say Wayne Bennett. I don't know if it was. It basically said, this is not the time, Origin's not the time to be a hero. You sort of pick the team that picks itself, and I looked at the team. I looked at their team and I thought, well, he's going to be a hero or zero. That's the way it's going to be in this game for Billy. He's either going to nail it and we're going to be bitterly disappointed, or he's not, and I'm going to be very happy. But yeah, it was such. I found Anyway, not that I care, but
he was at the Rabbitohs at one stage, wasn't he, Shibasaki?
He was. Didn't do a lot.
Right. So last year or the year before?
I want to say a year before. Maybe he did play with us for a little bit last year. I know there was a mid-season thing. Look, he was fringe. He was very much a fringe player.
Yeah.
And when he did play, he look. I'll say this about him. I felt the game that South Sydney were playing at that time, which was a mystery to everyone but Jason Demetriou. I think the type of play maybe didn't suit him. It just didn't look right. He just he's playing some decent football this year and good on him. But wow, I don't know. I could probably find a handful of other players that I'd pick before him, but. I
think it's a smoke screen, and that he said this, but he's going to play Hammer in the centres and Walsh at fullback. You think he's just trying to pull the wool over us? Or?
Yeah, maybe. My thing is that the Hammer at the moment is playing some phenomenal football. I think I'd probably rather. If someone said to me, Hammer moves to the centres, Walsh at fullback, I'd as a Blues fan, I'd feel actually a bit more comfortable with that. I think the Hammer bringing the ball back, if we had a staggered line at any time, he'd kill us. And he's in some phenomenal form, the Hammer, at the moment. He's the unsung hero for that team, for that Dolphins team. So it's going to be interesting. I think. It's going to be very interesting how they get named 1 to 17 Queensland, because you're right, there could be a bit of this happening, but I don't know. Anyway, we're going to find out next Wednesday. So no doubt we'll have some thoughts before then, because we've got a round of Rugby League coming up this week. I'll go through some results and then we'll see what caught your eye. I'll tell you what caught my eye was Panthers 8-6, and Panthers have been the informed team of the competition at the moment. they're doing everything that's been asked of them. They won 8-6 against the Doggies. Seagulls 28, Tigers 10. 22 Raiders, they're looking very good as well. They're winning the games they need to win. Against the Knights 18. Broncos at home beat the Warriors 26-12. Dragons 34, Eels 20, and I suppose was an entertaining game for everyone who doesn't go for either of these teams. But Dolphins 50 beat South Sydney 28, and South Sydney, they're in trouble at the moment. They are in deep trouble. Storm dominant against the Sharks 30-6 in Amy Park, and the Titans are beaten by the Cowboys 30 points to 24. And what was a really bizarre game if you're watching it. So if we look at the table, the Raiders, they're clear out in front. They're 28 points. When I say clear, I mean 13 wins. Dogs are on 28 too, but they've had all 3 byes. So when you're looking at wins to losses, they're 2 ahead of everyone else. 26 the Storm, 24 Warriors, they're both on 10 wins. Broncos 20 with 8. Roosters, Panthers 7 wins. Dolphins 8 wins. So byes playing a little bit of a part there. Seagulls 18, 7 wins. Sharks 18, 8 wins. Dragons 18, 6 wins. So we're now getting into a bit of the dregs where Cowboys on 17 points, Knights 14 points, West Tigers 14, Eels 14, South Sydney, they're on 14 points, and the Titans rounded out on 12 points. I suppose end of Origin bye season for a lot of these teams, so you'll probably see over the next few weeks some of the levelling up and teams sort of leapfrogging by the fact they got the bye, but some of those teams down the bottom, they're for and against, is looking very ordinary indeed. Griffo, what caught your eye this week?
Young Katoa. Isaiah Katoa.
He was great. Shit. I
He
don't want to say it. Yeah, he was very good. He had a great game.
Obviously, the Hammer scored a lot of tries, and then I had a great game as well. But
can I say Katoa?
The architect was Katoa.
He's having a great year.
He is.
He's having a phenomenal year. Like in his scrapbook, there'd be plenty of cutouts put in his scrapbook for this year, because he's having a cracking season at the moment. And I know a lot's been made of the Dolphins. What's the Dolphins going to look like? How they're going to go? They've got a nucleus that if they could start buying some players, developing some players, especially from Queensland where they can draw from, I actually think they've got the makings of they are really, really looking good for the next couple of seasons if they can just hold it all together.
Well, they've developed this amazing ability to score points. They've got more points for than any other team in the NRL. And they may have played an extra game compared to some, but they've been scoring 40s and 50s regularly over the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yep.
And last week, Souths were on the end of it.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I actually tipped Souths because I looked at, they had their dream backline that they haven't been able to put together all year. And, they got hammered. And the Dolphins are doing it with basically half of what would be their forward pack out, with the likes of Saifiti, Gilbert, the prop forward Flegler. I think there's one. Kafusi was out as well, so more than half of what would be their starting pack is missing. And the guys are stepping up, and the forwards are holding their own, and then the backs are just carving up whoever they come up against, pretty much.
I read a stat, and I could be wrong. I read it sort of in passing in an article. It's something like you great win. So they've got the best attacking percentage or points, but something like they got the most tries scored outside of their 20. So they're not just scoring tries when they're at the pointy end of the field, they're scoring them from everywhere. And I think that's where that early ball to Katoa and the hammer comes in, and it just gives the whole team options. It's almost like their attack. They can flick the switch at any point, at any tackle. Like, you know, if
well, you got the likes of Herbie Farmer.
Yeah, Herbie Farmer, brilliant. Like, geez,
Bostock was doing well till he got injured.
It's almost like they just go, "Oh, tackle three, let's go." Yeah,
plenty of speed.
100%.
And they bring in Cobbo next year. So if if the coach there, the Wolf, can unlock the Selwyn Cobbo key, I mean, it's just going to be an absolutely. I mean, it's already pretty dynamic, but throw Cobbo into the mix if he can get the best out of him, and watch out. That's it. It's been a great. And it's only their third year in. First year under the Wolf, and I think they lost their first 3 games.
Yeah.
They're in the top 8 currently. They've only had 1 bye.
Yeah.
So they're on track to make the finals for the first time. In the last 2 years, we've seen them peter out when they've been in the top 8 and then fallen away. Interesting to see what happens this year.
I think we've always said this, Griffo, haven't we, in our discussions, that the finals is another competition. It's a brand new competition. If you can get yourself to the finals, I think of teams that sort of throughout the year struggled, got themselves to the finals. Like, remember that Raiders team a few years ago where they beat the Storm and they just got themselves to the finals, and then that was it. Parramatta back in the day, who went on that run. It's another competition, and for the Dolphins, if they can get themselves into the mix and get themselves into the 8, look, my team's not going to be there, but I think if I was any other club watching the Dolphins play, I don't know if I'd, like, all of a sudden you're going, hang on, they could be in the bottom 4 playing knockout football. I don't know if I'd want to be playing the Dolphins. It's, you're going to have your defence totally tuned in, and at the same time try and outscore this mob. It's a tough ask at the moment.
Well, they're in good form at the moment, but we'll see.
But we've got a little bit more to go.
Yeah.
Just want to bring up something, Griffo, about Perth. During the week, a lot was made week leading into Origin that Perth wouldn't get Rugby League, and that the articles were written by pro AFL journalists, and they said,
is this in the Perth newspaper?
Yes.
No, well, they're dickheads.
They are, aren't they? Because it's sort of they've got egg on their face now, haven't they? It totally goes to show that they want this team, and everything we've seen since then has really shown that I think the NRL finally, we've been calling for it for a little while. I think they've got it right. So I just want to bring that up because I had a couple of people who listened to the podcast sort of say, Shane, what were you did you hear about this and what were your thoughts? And I thought, what stupidity that instantly you haven't gotten behind your team. One of the big questions that was raised as to why someone might write that is that apparently the AFL looked very closely at memberships, and a couple of them have thought it was unfair that you've got a club that would be based in Sydney now affiliated with Perth, that they felt that the NRL were double dipping in some ways. But I think what load of rubbish, I think it's a good thing that we're going to see this. And I look, you know what?
On the
small part of me hopes.
On the newspaper, there's only one newspaper in Perth called, I think it's the West Australian.
Geez, they're up all night thinking that name up.
Yeah. It is owned by Channel 7. And Channel 7...
That's why you're on this show, Griff. You know your stuff.
Yeah, it's common knowledge. Like, Channel 7, obviously, 100% AFL.
Yeah.
I think Stokes is the owner. And there's...
Kerry Stokes, big backer of South Sydney once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
When we got back in the club, when we got back in the fold, he actually...
Oh, okay. Well,
he was a big backer.
He's obviously... he's not pro...
He's not pro league anymore.
So they don't want any rugby league because it threatens their media network. People get to read whatever they want. This is 2025. Just because they're the only newspaper doesn't count for what it did.
So much,
20 years ago. We've got the internet, so people are free to read stuff from anywhere in the world. And I don't know what the readership is these days in newspapers. Not too many actually buy hard copies of newspapers anymore.
No, because you have to be a friggin' million. Have you seen the cost of a newspaper?
I haven't bought one for a while. But...
Mate, like, far out. You think coffee's expensive?
I don't think, obviously if the local rag was backing the team, it wouldn't hurt. But I don't think it hurts too much that, like anyone who's mildly interested in rugby league is smart enough to know that it's coming.
Yep.
Perth will have a team. You can have your AFL team and still be a Perth fan
100%.
or not. But the reality is there's 2 million people in that city. A lot of them are interested in rugby league, whether they're expats or whether they just have an interest in rugby league. Now, the stats that I saw re the Origin game, 57,000 crowd, 13,000 came in from New South Wales and Queensland. So there was only a small portion that were travelling to the game, and I was one of them.
Yeah.
But given that fact, nearly everyone that was there, I had blue or maroon on, mostly blue, as I said. So obviously, a lot of people have moved to Perth or other parts of WA from Queensland and New South Wales. You've got a lot of Kiwis, you've got a lot of South Africans and British over in Perth who have an interest in the shape of a football that you don't just have to kick, but you can actually run with. A lot of those people are rugby fans, probably first and foremost, but they're the sort of people that be likely to latch on to the Bears as well, and they're going to be successful. Whether they can be successful in the short term on the field, and that's essential, I think, to get wider support. It's a big city. It's not a town of 300,000. There's 2 million people there, and as I said, a lot of them have come from New South Wales and Queensland, and have an interest in rugby league, and they're going to have a good basis of support, certainly enough to be viable. The Western Reds in the past were viable, but they disappeared as a result of the Super League and the ARL coming together and trying to reduce the number of teams. So they were a bit of a casualty of that. It wasn't as though they were struggling for fans. But I'm just, as you say, we've been talking about this for some years, that Perth needs to have a team, and they've got one. They haven't got a lot of time to get things together, but I think they've picked the right man for coach Mal Meninga. Now, he's a figurehead. I think his assistant is Ben Gardner, who's currently an assistant at the Panthers. So I would imagine that at the end of this year, he will become 100% the time will be devoted to the Bears.
Yep.
I just hope he doesn't take a whole swag of Panthers like Geraldo did, and Webster over in Auckland as well took one or two.
Well, Griffo, I was talking to a couple of our carpool listeners, not talking. I was actually a couple of messaged me asking for my thoughts about Perth, and I said, look, Griffo's over there. I want to ask this one question. In everything you saw at Origin, and I know what I saw on telly, you were there on the ground. I think that matters. I think that means a lot more than what I saw on telly. I think there's a lot of support for this team coming in.
There's no doubt. Yeah. They'll get a huge membership. Obviously, they'll have a lot here from North Sydney side of things.
Yes.
But they're a Perth team. Yeah. They got they're dipping into the history of the Bears, obviously, and that's not a bad thing. Certainly, you're going to have a support base for them when they come and play the games in Sydney, as well. We've seen the AFL. A lot of teams did it. South Melbourne came to Sydney and became the Sydney Swans.
Of course.
Brisbane Lions.
The Lions.
Fitzroy Lions. If I'm not
they were the amalgamation of the Bears and the Fitzroy Lions.
Okay, I don't understand all this stuff.
I remember
I do
that.
know that
I am a bit of a fan, so.
Okay.
Yes, I do remember the amalgamation of the Brisbane Bears
and
the Fitzroy
So
Lions.
It's been done before.
Yeah, it's been done plenty
the Swans
times.
have got a big fan base in Melbourne from the days when they were in South Melbourne team. It's a long time ago, but
I've never been privileged enough to watch. Like I go for the Swans, and I've never been privileged enough to go and watch a Swans game in Melbourne. But I know a few mates I've got and most definitely there's the old South Melbourne faithful who, and I was talking to one of the guys I know, and he saw a family, and they go for the Swans because their father went for South, or their grandfather went for South Melbourne. Their father went for South Melbourne. They go for South Melbourne. It's not about and they said they live in Richmond, and they would never even think about going for the Tigers. So it's one of those things, and I think you're correct. I think that a lot of people have had a lot to say over the past weeks and months about certain things. I think this is a good thing. I think this is something we can hold on to as being a very, very cool thing.
One of the things I will say, Shane, just about Perth as a sporting centre, the ground that they'll play at, HBF Stadium, which is used by, I believe, the rugby team and the soccer team. Mm-hmm. It's very close, walking distance from the centre of the city.
Yeah.
I walked past it probably 7 or 8 times while I was over there. My hotel, or backpackers as I stayed at, was just around the corner. Optus Stadium, which is a great stadium. It's also a long walk, just from the city as well, but it's walking distance. It's a very good setup. So I do envisage most of their games, if not all, will be at HBF. But if they do start, and HBF only sells maybe not even 20,000. It's not a big ground. But if they feel as though they've got the support, then they'll take some of the bigger games to Optus, obviously, where there's plenty of seats available, and I think in the long term, it's going to be successful, and it does open up a new market, which is when you expand, you have to go into new markets. You can't just put in another team in a saturated market already.
I tell you what, I think the hottest ticket for that Perth Bears, their first game at home will be a massive ticket. I actually look, if someone said to me that South Sydney were playing the Bears in Perth, I'd go. If it was round 1 South Sydney versus the Bears, I'm telling you now, I would buy a ticket to that. The other thing, their first Sydney game, do not put it anywhere else but Allianz or Accor, because you will get, I'm telling you now, you will sell the place out. It will be a blockbuster, phenomenal game. I'm talking about now because I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's
I think you might see they'll put him up against Manly, the traditional rivals.
Oh, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
wouldn't that be
played
brilliant?
at Allianz. North Sydney's not big enough.
No, fuck. North Sydney, North Four Pines would do that game justice. You need to. Could you imagine their first Sydney game against the team that screwed them? That would be brilliant. Yep. I'd go there. I'd be the random. Look, there'd be plenty of random South fans. But I'm telling you now, like when Sonny Bill came back for the Roosters, I'll be sitting on the North Sydney side.
Yeah.
We've got some footy coming up, Griffo, don't we?
Yeah, I believe there's 5 games and a women's round as well.
There is. So
that's on the way.
So let's get it up here now. What's going on here? My computer has just decided to play a little bit of silly buggers. What I'm gonna do? Come on. No. Yeah, the women's one's gonna be.
I can go through the teams if you want.
No. There we go. Well, if nothing. Here we go. We got it. On tomorrow, 3rd of July, we're talking about Telstra Women's Premiership here. We have the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks taking on the Parramatta Eels. This is round 1 of the women's NRL. Look, when we look across the teams. Notable players for the Sharks. Tiana Penatani Gray, as we know, played in the is now the captain for the Sharks. Played in the New South Wales versus Queensland teams, State of Origin teams. Ellie Johnson's playing for the Sharks as well. Quincy Dodd in a hooker. Always a good player. Jacinta Carter also. So that's a cracking 8, 9, and 10.
They've also signed Shano with I don't know if she's any relation. The Johnson from formerly played with Newcastle.
Yes.
Caitlin Johnston. She's out at the moment, because I believe not long ago she's given birth. So, but she will be back. So it'll be a double Johnston up front.
And another solid player that the Sharks have got, that the Sharks do have, is Cassie Staples as well. Apparently, I read a really good article on Cassie Staples. Apparently, she was a phenomenal netball player and playing rugby league.
Well, they got Emma Veron at the back as well.
Actually, Emma Veron and Abby Church. What a that just sets everything up really for a fullback challenge there. They're coming up against the Parramatta Eels, which over the years the Parramatta Eels have been this really strange ebb and flow team where you sort of think no, and then they win a few games. In saying that, they've got some solid players. I don't think they have the class of some of the other teams. In saying that,
one of their best players, Kennedy Charrington.
Kennedy Charrington is there. Yep. Charrington is their best player. They've got some players who play some very good football, but yeah, they're looking to struggle. Looking at these two sides, Griffo, I think the Sharks have this game in the bag. Really, they're playing against a group of players who are far less experienced. I think Rachel Pearson, we've sung her praises for a long time here on this show, but she can't be hooker, prop, second rower, 5/8 winger, centre. She's her kicking game will be very important, but I just think the Sharks have far too much class all along the field.
Yeah, I had quite a look at this round today. There's a lot of new names, a lot of ladies I'm not familiar with. I think the Sharks probably, but they did lose their number 7 also, Preston, who's gone to the Bulldogs.
Yeah,
but I'll stick with the Sharks there.
Speaking of the Dogs, that's the Friday 4th of July. Friday 4th of July game. You have at Accor Stadium at 5:40. We have the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Newcastle Knights, and interestingly, there's probably a few names for the Knights that you sort of think would be there that sort of isn't. Vete Welsh, in at fullback. We're used to seeing someone else there, of course. Georgia Roach and Jessie Southwell, cracking halves combination though. Yasmin Clydesdale is the captain for the Knights. She's been an absolute powerhouse for this side for many years. The Canterbury Bankstown side, look, across the park has some very, very solid players. Taylor Preston is the feature of that. Their captain and halfback. A good forward pack, I feel. Really, really good forward pack. Ebony Pryor in a hooker. I just see, however, the bench for both these sides is going to play, I think, a significant role. And this is going to be another. I think this is actually going to be a close game with the Knights edging it out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the 1 to 7 for both these sides play. And I just think when you look at Roach and Southwell, that's a combination that can really own a team.
Yeah, this Knights side's nothing like the side, really.
Isn't it? It's
won a couple of comps in a row. Hannah Southwell has left. I think she's gone to the Dragons. Upton's gone.
Yeah, Tamika Upton's the massive.
But they do still have Jessie Southwell.
Yep.
And Bo Vete Welch is a very good replacement for Upton. They still got Yasmin Clydesdale in there. She's one of the best forwards in the
you know what?
W.
I rate her as a rugby league player so highly.
I'm going to stick with the Knights.
So good. Yeah.
More of that I'm aware of than with the Bulldogs. As I said, there's a lot of new players come in this year with the 2 new teams coming in, obviously, but we'll see after a few weeks how teams are going.
At 12:45 on Saturday, we see the Brisbane Broncos taking on the West Tigers. I was looking at this game today, Griffo, in what is the haves versus the have-nots, really. That's no disrespect to the Tigers, but gee whiz, when you look up and down this side, Tamika Upton, fullback. You got Broughton and Brigginshaw in the halves. Jada Ferguson, hooker. Spreadborough in at lock. Their interchange bench would start in nearly every team but the Broncos. It's just an absolutely jam-packed side of experience and talent. It's a very, very complete side. West Tigers, really looking through them, it's a very young team. I think it's a very inexperienced team. Kezi Apps in the second row, the captain, of course. That Kezi's a name that's been formidable with women's rugby league for a long time now, and I just think this is a side that it looks like they're in a significant building phase at the moment. There's a few players here for the West Tigers that have come with some potential big raps that may develop into very good players. They're very young. They're a very young side, the West Tigers, and when you look across the park, they're also very inexperienced. The Broncos will win this and win this well, but I'll be very interested to see what the Tigers do at the back end of the season. If they can learn and they can grow, well then next year they may be creating a very good team for the future. But for the moment, the Broncos should win this very well.
Well, we're familiar, I guess, with a lot of these Broncos players, not so many on the other side. I did hear yesterday that the Broncos are favourites to take out the competition.
Yeah,
I personally wouldn't say that they are. I still think the Roosters myself.
I agree. I actually went through a bit of the thing. Do you want to know who I've got as my grand final team? I think it's going to be I sort of did a Roosters Raiders grand final.
Okay.
Which was interesting because when I look, I think there's a lot of, and we'll talk about this game in a minute. But yeah, I agree. I don't know if the Broncos, for me, I think the Roosters are just a step above at the moment. But anyway, maybe we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I certainly think the Broncos will take this game out. Yeah.
At 3:15, GIO Stadium, we've got the Raiders. They're taking on the St. George Dragons. Both sides have sort of this mix of experience and youth. Tamara for the Raiders, captain up against McGregor. They're both halfbacks, both captains. I think that's going to be a very, very good matchup. I think also Tegan Berry at fullback, Margot Vella, she's really grown over the past 12 months as a rugby league player, cementing her spot on the wing. I actually played some fantastic football throughout the year. My wife worked with someone who's related to Margot, so we're watching her closely and very impressive. Tamara Shante version versus Sally Hopkins, also in the number 9, will be interesting. But for me, it's Taufa and Southwell, the locks, that's going to provide a very interesting matchup there. I look across the teams and I go, there's some sort of evenness here. The interchanges, I think, where the Raiders have it, they've just got a bit more. I've got the Canberra Raiders winning this one. I think the Raiders are one of these teams, when you look sort of 1 to 17, they may not have the names that we're used to, but geez, they've got some solid players across the park, and I just think they might have. I think they will have the edge here on the Dragons.
Yeah, I don't know enough to be totally accurate, but I do know that the Dragons have a lot of try-scoring potential in the back line. Racine McGregor, I think she missed a bit of last year with injury. She's a quality player. They got Casey Ray Cyrus, the 5'8", who has dominated under 19s clashes in the last 2 years. She's quality, Casey Ray Cyrus. Berry, we know, is a try scorer. I don't know much about the forwards for the Dragons apart from Hannah Southwell, but I think the class of McGregor and Ray Cyrus and Tegan Berry at the back. I'm gonna back the Dragons here.
So one I think So Madison Mulhall, she was captaining the side in the Tarsha Gale Cup.
Okay.
Very good football player. So she's.
I know they've had a lot of very good juniors coming through.
I think for the Dragons, a bit like the Tigers, this is just one of those. This is one of those years where if everyone can cope with the speed of this game and the step up, halfway through the year it might not look like a lot, but coming home towards the end of the year, I think they're going to play some very good football. If they can hold on to this side for 12 months, well, that could bode really well for them. 5th of July, Queensland, Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. What's going on here? No idea. Cowboys versus the Titans at 5:15. This is a tough game for me to pick because I think both these sides again have done a bit of a mix of youth versus experience. We've got people like Abigail Roach playing for the Cowboys, Rosie Kelly, Kira Dibb, who's the captain halfback. You've got Bree Chester, who's come through and is playing lock up against Georgia Hale. So Georgia Hale will be the captain for the Titans. I think they have a co-captaincy. No, they don't. I told a lie. Georgia Hale will be the captain for the Titans. You also have Taylor Fumeono in at 5'8" for the Titans. Jamie Chapman at the back. So when you look at these two sides, it's sort of this mix of youth versus experience. Looking at the Cowboys, though, their forward pack is very, very skillful. Looking at what people have done in Tarsha Gale and coming forward and around, Emma Manzelmann for the Cowboys is a great number 9. I think watch for her to actually direct the play, and I think that'll help because if there's something that we've been critical about for the Cowboys in the women's game is that basically they spread it wide and hope for the best. I think that's going to be very different this year. The Titans have a very good side though, and I think Jamie Chapman with Taylor Fuimaono, Lauren Brown will also prove to be very formidable. I love their second row. Shelley Benn and Georgia Hale at the lock. Their bench or the interchange, it looks very good. I was actually flipping a coin this, and I choose the home side, but I will. I'm going to choose the home side. I think this is going to be a very close game, and I think the home side just have it. But the Titans, they're looking good. I think they've got some good. They've got a good mix this year. But the Cowboys for me.
I'm going to go Titans. The class of Lauren Brown, Jamie Chapman, who's playing at fullback for the first time, Fumeono, Vitalia variety. I think there's too much class there. This team made the grand final a couple of years ago. Obviously not exactly the same side, but there's plenty of attack.
I agree.
I'm going to stick with them. Interesting that both fullbacks, Whitfield and Chapman, have been wingers in the past, and they're getting more responsibility now. Obviously, both their coaches want to see them get more ball because they're both very, very good runners. Both have represented New South Wales on the wing, and moving now to a more high-profile position.
Whitfield. I know Whitfield. They were chasing her for a very long-term contract. She's contracted with the Cowboys till the end of 2028.
Right.
So they were very keen to secure her, not just to get her signature, but to get it for a long time.
Originally, she was a West Tiger.
That's right. She's been a bit of a journey She's been through a few clubs, I think, from memory. She's been Tigers, Knights at one stage too. One other team in there, I'm sure of it. Anyway, I'll we'll go back to the team list and have a look. So I'm sure she's actually been for one other one, but a very talented player.
Yeah. Played for Australia.
Played for Australia. You can't get any higher than that. Knights, Tigers, and now Cowboys. Of course, Cowboys is third side. So you can tell that I didn't do too well at maths. So
we didn't have to.
I didn't have to.
A great other range of skills.
That's right. So the last game for the day, and I think this is going to be an absolute cricket score. When I was doing my notes for this, the Roosters are taking on the Warriors at Allianz. The Roosters just have a absolute plethora of talent. Parker, Surges, Kelly, Prasad, Baxter, Keller, Davis, it's Yasmin Strange, Oliver Koenig. It's like even their bench would start in a lot of other teams. It's just looking. Their 1-17 is the strongest 1-17 in the competition.
They are missing the best player in the world out injured for this game when Taranaki can shoot.
Of course, Taranaki is injured. Yeah, and that just goes to show where they're at, really.
Yeah.
Up against the Warriors, Appy Nichols, captain, fullback, very, very good quality player, but I just sadly, the Wars, they're again a mix of a bit of youth with what they need to fill gaps. That's no disrespect.
A lot of girls have come over from rugby union.
That's exactly right.
Come into this team.
That's exactly right. I will say this though. I did a bit of homework on this Wars side because I thought, well, we're going to be talking about them fairly extensively for the next few weeks. They're not without skill. They actually in their position and where they play, they're quite a skillful side. They just I think if they can match it with every side. I just think Sunday, they just won't have it against a side who just know how to play rugby league in the Roosters. But moving forward, they could actually be a team to watch, and everyone loves it when the Wars are doing well. But yeah, I've got the Roosters winning this well.
Another interesting positional change is a strange one. We see Jasmine Strange in the back row. She's always been known as a centre or a winger, but when you got Surges and Kelly,
can I say, Griffo, I think they're going to go for that second row pass out wide to the centres. I think she'll be a ball playing second rower.
Oh, she's a really good player.
100%. I think they're going
to... her loyalty to England.
Yeah.
And for, she's got a reason. I believe her mother's English. But she would have found a way into the Gillaroos, maybe a little bit further down the track, but she'll strengthen the English team. I think
they're going to score a lot of tries through that corridor where it's going to be probably half 5'8" her and attracting attention to the centres, and it's going to be. I think that's going to bode well for them. Well, that's the women's game, round one. Looking forward to it. It's if their Origin series was anything to go by, this is going to be a great series for them, and for us. Well, not for them. It's going to be a great series for us because we're the viewers, and we're gonna really enjoy watching it. Telstra Premiership, Friday, 4th of July. Seas the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the Brisbane Broncos second plays fifth. For these teams now, there's a lot of ins and outs, and maybe I should just go through some key changes. So Selwyn Cobbo comes in at fullback for He'll be up against Connor Tracy. You got Wilson Karapani on the one wing, Montoya Arthurs on the other. Sherry Tula on the wing on the centres for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Stags and Mariner are the centres for the Broncos. Matt Burton, Ezra Mann, 5'8" for respective sides. Toby Sexton and Adam Reynolds are the halves. Harry Hayes, Corey Jensen, Samuel Hughes and Xavier Wilson. So Hayes, Hughes for the Dogs, Jensen, Wilson, they're the bookends. Reid Marnie and Corey Pax are the hooker. Bilami Kiko is the captain. He with Jacob Preston is in the second row. Pikura and Jordan Ricky, they are the second rowers for the Broncos, with Howard and Kobe Hetherington locking the scrum for both these sides. Lockie Galvin finds his way into the interchange bench. Josh Curran, Hopoy, and Curtis Moran, they are the interchange benches for the Bulldogs. Billy Walters, Jaden Hunt, Tyson Smoothie, and Jack Jagalski for the Broncos round out the interchange. I've read out those teams because, geez, if I went through the ins and the outs, it's easy to go through the sides. Very, very good quality players on both these sides still, regardless of origin. In Sydney, I think the Bulldogs would be hurting from that Panthers result from last week. I think they're going to want to show that they're genuine premiership contenders, and they're going to have to do it this week against the Broncos. Selwyn Cobbo and fullback will be an absolute watch this space. If he owns this game, well then, Broncos and Dolphins fans will be salivating alike. This is a bit of a flip the coin for me. So it's the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at home, Griff. I just think that they might just get it through home crowd, Kickow and Preston in the second rows, being a bit creative. Reid Marnie again, but geez, it's going to mean they're going to have to shut down the other forward packs and consolidate Adam Reynolds' kicking game. If they give Adam Reynolds any space, they'll be on the back foot all night long. Bulldogs, just Griff.
Yeah, I've got the Bulldogs as well. I do expect, and the two guys you mentioned, Kickow and Preston, are the ones for me that will be the dominant forces, I should say, in defeating the Broncos. The Broncos, I think, probably suffer the bigger origin outs with Haas, Carrigan, Walsh. They are missing Shibasaki, but I don't think they're going to miss him too much. It's Carrigan and Haas up front. They don't really have too many other weapons in the forwards, to be fair. There's some good players there, Piakura, Ricky, but I don't think those two are going to outplay Kickow and Preston. I think the Bulldogs win. Broncos have still got bullets to fire with Cobbo, Stags, Mariner, Arthurs. They can all, score tries. Reynolds to guide them around the park. Bulldogs were very good in losing last week. In what was, a lot of people said, the game of the year, and I'm not going to disagree with that. I was at the game, and it was, edge of your seat stuff pretty much the whole way through. They went toe-to-toe with the Panthers, and it really literally came down to the last play. They still could have got away with that game. had they scored on that last play, and it looked like, and I was a bit worried they were going to. But the only try they conceded was the charge down. So, they've got a very strong defence. I think they win this game, not by much, but it's Bulldogs for me, Shane.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you with the game. I thought the game for me reminded me of the Panthers Roosters game in 2003, where although the Panthers lost against the Roosters, it sort of defined their season. And it's almost like that was the Dogs. Like there were times in that game where you thought, geez, they're just gonna like the Panthers are just the Panthers. They're just gonna break them apart, like And
neither side buckled.
It was
both sides threw everything at each other.
It was good to watch.
And they just didn't buckle. Like anyone else, I reckon. Both teams probably scoring into the 20s, maybe 30s.
Yeah,
with what they were throwing.
For me, it was exactly like when the Panthers played the Roosters in 2003, and you thought, and the Panthers didn't get the chocolates, but you thought, geez, they've got the know-how, and I felt that was like for me the Dogs. We haven't seen that in the Dogs for a long time, and for a few seasons, and we saw it last week. Raiders take on the Dragons at GIO Stadium at 5:30 on Saturday, 5th of July. Look, the only out for the Raiders is of course Josh Papali'i, who's been called into the side, to the Queensland team. For the Dragons,
no Hudson Young either, but he didn't play last week.
He didn't play last week, yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know when he'll be back.
He's playing for the Blues.
Yeah, that's right.
Not injured. He was injured.
That's right. He was injured, but he's playing for the Blues, of course. Yeah. For the Dragons, it's an absolute tapestry of what you think, who you think might be in and who might be out. I would just run with 1 to 17 with the Dragons, and that's pretty much who they ran with last week. The only difference is Raymond for Tyler Mariner. He'll be in the second row. You also have, you've got Molo on the interchange bench as well. Hame Sele's there as well. So you've got some people. Tyrell Sloan is being named on the wing, so that's
they lose Val out of the back line to Origin.
They lose Val out of the back line due to Origin, and that's where Tyrell Sloan comes in. Look, regardless, I think the Canberra Raiders, to only lose, of course, a couple to State of Origin and one from last week, Josh Papali'i. I think that's where they're at. The Raiders at home have been exceptional. They've learned to play rugby league both home and away, and they're playing a very tough game of rugby league. They are a physically strong rugby league team. I've got to be honest. I could always take or leave the Canberra Raiders, but this year I look at them, and if someone says to me what is it about them, their physical strength. They not only have class to beat you with skill, but they will bash the crap out of you while they're doing it. I've got the Canberra Raiders winning this one, and I've got them winning this one fairly well, Griff.
Yeah, I agree. The Raiders aren't too badly hit by injuries in Origin. Obviously, they're missing a few, but not as many as the Dragons. Dragons, a lot of injuries. Not too many in Origin, but a lot of injuries going through this team. They had a good win last week. I didn't actually tip them. I thought Para would get them last week, but to their credit, they played really well in the first half and hung on in the second half. That's not going to be good enough against the Raiders. They're definitely stepping up in class against the team from Canberra, who I think will win quite handsomely.
Yeah, I agree. 7:35 on Saturday. we see in Queensland Country Bank Stadium, the North Queensland Cowboys are taking on the Melbourne Storm. Of course, both teams hit by Origin, Jeremiah Nanai, and other things as well. Jeremiah Nanai, Reece Robson, Ruben Cotter, and Tom Dearden, they're out for the Cowboys. Cameron Munster, Harry Grant, Stefano Ukuma. We'll just say Stefano because I had my tongue tied there. Fa'alongo, Loiero, and Xavier Coates is out for the Storm. That still means that you have matchups like Scott Drinkwater versus Ryan Pappenhausen. You have Nick Meaney versus Zach Labour. You have Jake Clifford against Tyrone Wishart. Thomas Duffy against Jerome Hughes. Edwards Garlic. Sam McIntyre versus Big Nelson. This game is actually really interesting because it's in Townsville, and this is a game that when you look at it, the Cowboys will be thinking we have to grab something from Origin. You go 1-17 with the Storm, and you go, there's still quality around the park. I've got the Storm winning this one, and I've got the Storm winning it fairly well. I think that they're going to do a good job, Griff.
Yeah, I do expect the Storm to win this game. They're obviously, some of their big players are out, principally Captain Harry Grant and the Queensland captain Cameron Munster. So they're two key players, but they've still got Jerome Hughes. They've still got the Flying Dutchman at the back, Ryan Pappenhausen. And they've got a very strong forward pack with the likes of Big Nelson, Eliasa Katoa, who's been in fine form. Sean Blaw's also been very good for them. And they got the boppers up front, Kamakamitha and Josh King. Very interesting to see Jonah Pezzett listed for the first time this year. A very talented young half who's had a serious injury. He's come back. He would be a number 7 if he wanted to be in most clubs in the NRL. The Knights went hard to try and get him back to Newcastle. He said, no, I want to stay at the Storm. However, if Jerome Hughes does sign on again, Pezzett can go elsewhere. But he's a very good player, Jonah Pezzett. I'm a little surprised maybe that he's not starting maybe in the number 6 outside of Jerome Hughes, or even, in the 7 and Hughes play at 6. They've got Joe Chan, who's a big forward, playing in the centres. So that's a bit of a weakness for mine. So quite a bit of speed in the outside backs of the Cowboys. That's their strength, with the likes of Darby, Purdue, Labour, Taulungi and Drinkwater at the back. They've got a lot of try-scoring potential there, but I don't know they're going to be able to stop the Melbourne Storm from scoring tries. Really disappointed for Sua Fa'alongo, who looks like he's out for the year with a serious leg injury. So that's a big blow. He had become a winger, but
that was unfortunate.
Very. Yeah, I mean, you love to watch that guy play. The things he can do, most humans can't do. He's an excitement machine, and he's a big loss for the Storm. Early in the year, he wasn't in their top 17. He couldn't even crack a spot on the bench, which I thought was strange. But we've seen what he can do, and he is a very much an X factor that they're going to miss. Look at that Storm outside backs of Anderson, Chan, Meaney, and Bradley, and they can all play, but they're not going to hurt you too much, I don't think. The Storm win through the likes of Jerome Hughes, Pappenhausen, and I think they'll dominate the forwards. But I do think they win and potentially win handsomely.
Yep, I agree. At 2 o'clock on Sunday, we have at Allianz Stadium the Sydney Roosters taking on the West Tigers. I suppose key outs for both these sides. Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, Lindsay Collins, Spencer Leniu for the Roosters. Also sees Coruscant out for the Tigers. Massive out for them. Mason and Taylor De Silva also out on the interchange. That really, it's funny. I looked at these sides. Yes, I looked at these sides on Teamless Tuesday, and I said to myself, although you've got Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, Lindsay Collins out, Sua Wong and Spencer Leniu for the Roosters, Coruscant and Taylor De Silva are probably the biggest disruption for the Tigers than the others are for the Roosters, and that just goes to show where the Tigers are at. You've still got people like James Tedesco playing for the Roosters, Daniel Tupou, Billy Smith, Marky Mark, who's having a cracking season, by the way, Sandon Smith in at 5'8". It looks like a very good side for the Roosters. It's not their full strength side by any stretch of the imagination, but up against the Tigers, it's going to take a monumental effort from the Tigers, considering that they are without probably they're without definitely one of their key attacking weapons. Can I give a shout out for the Tigers though? The way on the weekend, he really looked like if there was one person trying to do something for this side and get them up, it was him. He could actually do a lot for this club. They just need to hold the ball and do the little things. The Tigers, I just don't think they got it. I just look at their back. I look at each of these. The forward pack for both these sides. I think the Roosters have it in the forwards. And when I look at the back line, there's just so much class for the Roosters. And I just think the Tigers, they just get themselves into the grind and they do something silly like they knock it on. They're a better side than they have been in previous years. They're just not quite there yet. And when you take out absolute class, like Jerome Luai and Api Coruscant, that makes it very difficult. I've got the Roosters winning this one. Griff, what do you reckon?
Okay, just before I talk about the game, I want to talk about what I think is another massive blunder by this club, and that is letting Taylor De Silva walk out the door.
Don't start me.
Like, the guy had 18 months to run on his contract.
But why? What's the thought process on that?
Well, they just want to be consistent in the way that they're a poorly run club. I mean, they gain nothing out of it. Like, even if they had kept him till the end of the year, he would be playing number 9 this week.
Yeah,
Happy is out injured. Like, it's not like they had a swap deal that someone else came in for De Silva. They just let him go.
I just don't get their thought process on this. And
it makes no sense.
And it was almost, and the Tigers were happy to pitch it like a choice as well. Like, come on, guys! Like, you've got this really talented quality player. Why not leverage that for a while? Like, everyone has salary cap issues. I get it, and you got to put your money somewhere. But geez, you've got such an opportunity to leverage something. Use it. And this is, we were on this podcast, and I'll put my hand up because it was mainly me. I rubbished the board for the Tigers. I rubbished their administration. I said it needed to be sacked. I said that the bad decisions occurred because they listened to the wrong people. So they get all these new people in, and you think to yourself, well, they've made some good decisions, and then they make this one. It's like the old decisions are coming back.
How it benefits this club.
Yeah.
To let a very talented number 9,
I think he's a quality
leave,
player.
like, they don't get any benefit at all.
No.
Maybe save a bit of money in next year's salary cap, but who are they going to sign that's going to be better than him?
You know what? On top of Galvin going too.
Yeah. Well,
that's the thing. That's what compounds here. It's not just.
I mean,
it's not
that was
silver.
a fiasco. But in the end, they almost had to let Galvin go because of the threat of the bullying.
Yeah, 100%.
Going to court.
I'll get that.
Isaac Moses just played him off a tee.
But,
and Galvin didn't want to stay there. De Silva was happy to stay there.
100% he was.
As long as he took over the number 9 job from Appy. So if the agreement was if they re-sign Appy, they'd let him go. Well, firstly, they haven't re-signed Appy yet, and they may well do. But to let him go at this point in the season, is when he was signed up till the end of next year, it just defies any sort of common sense. And this is why the club constantly is chasing its tail. They started the year very well. They were in the top 8 for a while. They had more wins than losses. I think they've lost about 6 in a row. They're not winning this game. They're missing too many of their quality players. Buller, without him, they really struggle in attack. I watched them play Penrith about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they put up a good fight. I think it was maybe 3 tries apiece. Penrith sort of won because they kicked more goals, but they were very good, the Tigers. But whenever they had the ball, the only guy I was really worried about was Buller, and to a lesser extent Luai. They're missing him. He wasn't there last week, and neither was Buller. And they put up a decent fight, but the class isn't there.
Yeah.
And Appy missing as well this week.
Can I just put it
Where
out
do their
there?
points come from?
Can I put it out there, Griff? Because I suppose I look at Appy from a different perspective. I was there in 2014 when he was playing for South Sydney in the grand final. This guy's 32, turning 33.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're looking at longevity, how long can Appy play for versus De Silva?
Well, I think De Silva was at least 10 years his junior.
At least.
It's so short term and dumb. You shake your head. I'm glad I'm not a Tigers supporter.
Yeah, it would do my head in.
Okay, even if you think, okay, De Silva, look, we're going to sign Appy. We're happy to let you go, but next year. There is no benefit for this club.
You are staying till the bitter end.
They didn't bring anyone in. Like, how does it benefit them?
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't. So we'll move on.
Yeah.
These guys are going to lose this week. The Roosters, I think actually the Tigers forward pack, when you look at including guys off the bench, I think they match the Roosters at least in the forwards with May, Fanua Bole, Samuel Afinu, Seyfarth. They're all good players. I think they match the Roosters in the forwards, but I really think in the backs, the Roosters, too many tries that they're going to... Interestingly, the debut of Tom Rodwell, who is the son of the former Steeler, Brett Rodwell, I should say. I'll get that out. But he was a great player for the Steelers. They've also got his younger brother, who was an up-and-coming half who represented the under-19s Blues, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But he's a really good player coming through the system, which brings me to the point of where does DCE fit into this Roosters team in the future.
I don't think he
don't
does.
think he does either. I don't know if they can do a backflip on. There's nothing signed apparently, but from what I've heard, there's been a handshake saying DCE's coming in. But the blokes they've got there, remember they've played the whole year without Sam Walker, who came back in reserve grade and got injured, a different injury. And Savala and Smith have been fabulous. You've also,
They've done a good
got
job.
Walker to come back, and you've got the younger Rodwell, who is a gun in the halves.
They're looking good.
Well, they're looking good, but they don't need DCE.
No. I don't know where, like, when that whole thing started, and I don't know if we talked about it on here or first, it's like, why would you, like, as a coach, like, if you said, look, DCE, you're not going to play any football, but we'll pay you as a halves coach, fair call. He's an experienced guy who knows his stuff backwards. Of course you'd have him, but in any other shape or form on the rugby league pitch, they've got everything covered.
I think at the time they were well down the ladder. They were struggling a bit. They thought, well, we need someone to come in and steer the ship. But we've seen that the guys that they've got there are more than capable. And as I said, they've also got one Sam Walker, who is a class number 7, who hasn't played all year in the first grade side. So if DCE comes in, they're going to lose at least one and possibly more of these younger guys who are very, very good. And we know Perth's coming in the year after next. They're going to be looking for talent. They're not going to be signing DCE. They might target some of these young Rooster halves and give them an opportunity that they just can't get at Allianz Stadium. You got DCE there. I don't know. I don't even think he makes their first grade team, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, Roosters win this game, win well.
So the last game of the round is at Sunday, 4:05. 4 Points Park sees the Manly Warringah Seagulls taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The key out for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, of course, is Latrell Mitchell. Nathan Brown's also out for the Seagulls. Seagulls, without those guys, they're both pretty much 1-17 with a few positional changes. For the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Alex Johnson's in a fullback. Isaiah Tass is on the wing. Ewan Aiken slips into the centres. That's the only difference, with Jack Whiten in at 5'8". Interestingly enough, Cody Walker's been dumped to the reserve bench.
He's injured.
Yeah. I'd put injured in those shitty quotation marks. There's a word I just said there which probably indicates the form he was in last week, and it's not quotation marks. Brandon Smith is on the reserve bench. Interesting to see if Brandon Smith comes into the side and makes it through, and what he might do. South Sydney, I know a lot of people are saying, well, hang on, why aren't there certain players? They're, again, smashed with injuries. Against the Seagulls, look, heart versus head. Heart says South Sydney, by all means. Head says there's no way South Sydney's going to win this match. When you look at the side they're playing, I will say this, though. The South Sydney forward pack have played some good football, and in the last 5 weeks, whilst they've been beaten, they have won halves. It's just their defence capitulates in a half, and it's usually in the middle. It's usually around where Cameron Murray would be, so you can't replace that guy. Lachlan Hutton has done a very good job South Sydney's attack is very good. It's their defence which is struggling, and I think when you look at their injuries, they've lost some very good defensive people. Can I just say they're playing a side this week? When you look at their forward pack, Matthew Lodge, Jazz Tavanga, Takiaho, Corey Waddell, Ben Travojevic, Jake Travojevic, that throws a lot of questions at you and is very, very defensively sound. Not to mention, they've got Tom Trebojevic in the centres, Ruben Garrick on the wing, Brooks and Cherry Evans. I think across the park they've just got too much class, the Seagulls. I'd love to say that the Rabbitohs are going to win. I just don't think we're going to get the Chockies on Sunday. If they do promote Brandon Smith and drop Lewis Dodd, which is I think what they will do, it'll be very interesting to see how he fits into this side. Savila Havili has done a very good job. I don't know if he's a long-term fit. If Brandon Smith can produce the right service to the forward pack for South Sydney, then it could be very interesting moving forward who's going to be the number 9. But yeah, I'd love to say South Sydney are going to win this, but looking at things, they're probably not. Griff?
Yeah, look, I think South's best chance is the fact that they're playing a team that is very much hot and cold.
Yeah.
Manly had been in dreadful form before last week's victory. They are a bit of an enigma. The Sea Eagles, they're missing quite a number of forwards, who most of whom won't be back. They do get Ola Kawatu back down the track, but the big men up front, O'Shea Ole, questions about whether he's going to play again. He won't play this year. Big Paseka's been out pretty much the whole year, and they've struggled up front. Obviously, Corey Waddell, he's a handy player, but he's no Hamoli. So it's not a great forward pack. Lodge is back in. He was on a training trial. They've had so many injuries, they've had to bring him into the team. Takiaho's come back from being virtually medically retired, went over to France, went to a concert and lost his contract. But he's been pretty good for him this year. Plenty of class in the Manly back line, plenty of pace, and that's where I think they'll score tries. Souths have got a fair bit of pace. Munro, very quick. Maybe the other backs not so quick, but I don't know. This team started the year really well. We're in the top 8. They were winning games, tight games. You thought, well, they're banking points here, games they shouldn't have won. And you thought, well, that's going to be enough to see them make the bottom end of the top 8. They've sort of almost fallen off a cliff. Yes, they've been hard hit by injuries. You can't question that. I don't know anything about fitness and strength and conditioning, and our captain obviously
he knows far more about that than we do.
But there's got to be something wrong with the way they prepare their players to be losing so many over the last few years, not just this year, to injuries, particularly soft tissue injuries. You can't really, something like a broken leg or something, that's different. But they're losing players to injuries more so pretty much than any other team. You got to question the way that they prepare them. And, I'm just making that statement. Not that I know anything about that whole sort of thing, but is it a coincidence when last year they were decimated, this year it's been almost as bad?
Yeah.
you've got to ask the question: are they preparing their players as well as other teams who, just don't have that many injuries? And I don't know. I'm no expert, but they, as I said, they put themselves in a position to make a charge this year. They got the super coach back. They're sitting second bottom on the ladder. They will rise from that because they've only had the one bye. But whether they can rise out of the bottom four is now up to the players, really. They've got to perform. As you mentioned earlier, they've been good in attack. Latrell's been on fire. The week before last, where he set up, there was basically a replay 3 times. The Latrell firing a ball out to Alex Johnson, and then he set up another try with a kick through. He was outstanding in ball in hand, but they still lost that game. I think they scored more tries than their opposition on the day. It went down to goal kicks. So they can score tries. Some of their defence last week was absolutely diabolical.
It was rubbish.
Against I know the Dolphins are a good attacking force, but they were made to look better than what they are by some very poor defence. I will tip Manly. I'm not confident, to be fair, because Manly, as I said, they're very, very hot and cold. But I think they'll have enough to account for the Rabbitohs without a lot of players, but in particular, Latrell not being there. I don't see South scoring too many points, but I do see that Manly will.
Yep, fully agree. So that's it. That's the that's this week's games. We got the bye, of course. The Dolphins, Eels, Knights, Panthers, Sharks, Titans, and Wars. They have a bye this week. It's a big week leading up to Origin that will take place next Wednesday. Thanks for listening to us. Any final thoughts, Griff?
No, man. It's good to be back. It's been a little while. Do you want to do a show before Origin?
Yes. So we're going to do a show before Origin. Most definitely. It's the holidays, so why not? I'll be holidaying, so we'll definitely take the computer with us, and
all right.
And yeah, we're going to definitely have a show. And thanks for listening. Thanks for your concern, everyone. And hope your football team wins this week. And have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks, listeners.